Welcome to another episode of Nebraska Farmcast, produced by the Center for Agricultural Profitability at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. I'm Ryan Evans, and on this episode, we're talking about custom rates for field operations. Whether you are a producer hiring custom work or a provider offering services, understanding pricing trends and operational costs is always key. Joining me is Glennis McClure, an Extension Educator with the Center for Agricultural Profitability at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. As a farm and ranch management analyst, she helps lead efforts on the Nebraska Custom Rates Survey, which provides valuable data to producers and custom operators across the state. And today we'll discuss what the surveys cover, how they can be used, and why understanding the economics behind custom work is more important than ever. Glennis, good to be with you again.
Yes, thanks. I appreciate doing this podcast to explain a little bit more about what we're doing with the custom rates. And a recent article that I just wrote as we look at spring operations coming about and folks wanting to do or potentially either, providing spring tillage, spring planting, those kinds of things coming up, or as a lot of people use our custom rates report to sort of negotiate prices with those providing services. So it's good for the folks using the survey information and also for those that are providing it.
If you could just start off then with diving in a little bit more to the custom rates survey, what it is, who it's really for, and why it's conducted every 2 years here at UNL.
Right. Well, this is the Custom Rates Survey for Nebraska has been, an ongoing project out of the Department of Ag Economics for many, many years. And of course, you and I are integrally involved with the Center for Ag Profitability now, which is part of Ag Economics here. Anyway, so yes, I do work with this, and also Jim Jansen on our staff, helps us as well with this, but it is something that we do every other year of, how folks kind of get tired sometimes of surveys and so on. But it is a really very, very widely used survey that we put out. So the survey is answered, then we do a lot of data crunching and analysis, and then put together this report every other year. But it is really a market rate study. So that is asking people that do or provide the services what they are charging. So if they're calculating, kind of what it takes to be able to go out and to do this work for others, what is their charge or what is their rate for different things. And we divide then that report, we divide the data and analyze the data over the 8 crop reporting districts in Nebraska. So someone that's planting in the northeast part of the state, might have a different rate, or there is a different average rate. And then also you can tell by the numbers that we put in the report, how many people reported in that crop reporting district versus, let's say, out west. So you can get a sort of a range or better idea of, kind of how those rates are going across the state. And then we do a state average too. So as long as with a particular operation, and we have over like 150 different operations, noted in our comprehensive survey that we do every year, that as long as there are 3 or more folks that report on a particular operation and provide the rate information, then those are going to probably be put into the report. Some of the data gets clean because sometimes we have some really crazy sort of wide ranges. As data comes in, we want to make sure that they are, they make sense sort of. So, but for the most part, as long as we have enough people reporting on a certain operation, that's going to show up in the report.
Great. And you mentioned it is a market rate report, and it is statewide. It covers statewide here in Nebraska, and with such a diversity of growing conditions across the state, I'm sure custom rates can vary widely depending on those factors like location and equipment, fuel prices. So beyond just looking at the numbers in the report, what are some key things that producers and custom service providers should consider when they're setting those rates?
Well, yeah, and you already mentioned sort of location, because and demand, I think. So if someone has an interest in providing custom services, is there demand in your area? That's one question to ask, I'd say. And, so yeah, there might be a lot of folks nowadays where they might be absentee owners. Let's say someone has just a small farm and they don't own certain pieces of equipment. I think there's a need, and sometimes that grows in some areas. So there can be definitely the demand. And are you close enough to be able to go, take your equipment, go down the road and, and do some of that custom work. And we know there are folks that do, let's say, custom harvest in the fall time frame, and they go from state to state and so on. So there's those big operators that, really focus a lot on custom work. And so, they can also be included in our survey if they do work in Nebraska. But again, I'd say most folks are those that are, kind of in their area, helping others with some of the custom work that they need. I think the other thing, there's a couple other things, and we'll talk a little bit more later about like that equipment cost and what they should consider as they're figuring their rates. But I also think it's important to think about the timeliness of certain things. Because, the neighbor, if you're going to do custom planting for them this spring, obviously, the conditions have to be right. You've got to get your stuff done if you've got, acres to plant, but also, can you get to them in a timely manner? So there's just a lot of factors that kind of play in. Do you charge a little bit more because, your time is really precious? You have other things to do. But yeah, you can cover that person 5-10 miles away and get their planting done for them, So there's just a lot of factors that can go in. So we always have to think about those things. Folks tell us what they charge, and then we look at averages. We look at a most common rate, that are provided in the report. But again, your time might be of different value. Your equipment might be of let's say it's better quality, you can get across more acres faster, that kind of thing. So there's just so many things to think about as we think about the custom rate information.
Yeah, thanks, Glennis. And for those who rely on custom services when they're paying for the services, how can the custom rates report help them make more informed decisions when they're budgeting, or maybe just, quote unquote, shopping around for different service options?
Right. Well, and also even just making a decision whether they would or should buy their own equipment and do their own work, right? But so we always say that our custom rates report really just provides a guide. Okay. So again, it's not something, absolutely, this is what they're charging in Southeast Nebraska for this tillage operation. So absolutely, that's going to be what I need to charge, or that's what I'm going to pay. No, there's that whole negotiation type thing that comes in. Again, just going back to those factors that we just noted. How good of job does someone do for you? Are they timely? All of those kinds of things can go into that negotiation factor. So again, it's a guide. That's all.
Yeah. And the Nebraska Custom Rates Survey now isn't just about field operations, as there's a new dedicated livestock-related custom rates report that the first one was issued 2 years ago now in 2023. So can you tell us about that survey and what types of services it covers, and importantly, how people can participate in the livestock-related survey, because I know that you're collecting responses now.
Right. We're in the middle of that survey timeframe right now till the end of February. And so it is a great question. Thank you for, bringing that up here. But we started that a couple years ago because obviously Nebraska is huge when it comes to livestock production, especially on the cattle side of things. And so, we would get questions in from our livestock educators on, do we have a specific rate for this or that? And it's like, well, hey, there is, quite a number of things that we could ask a little bit more specifically when it's relating to livestock services, custom services. So for this survey, we're asking folks in this case, if you pay folks, if this is a common thing, I pay for someone to help me with this particular service, what is that rate? What do you typically pay? And then we also want those that are providing those services to participate. So that's a little bit different than our other custom, our regular, I call it the regular, more crops-oriented report, is that's where we're asking folks that provide the services to do the rates. So in this case, though, if you're using services or providing services, we'd like for you to participate in the survey. And you can find that information on our CAP website, cap.unl.edu/custom rates. And there's a link there where you could request participation in that survey. So we're taking those requests now, and then we can send you the link actually for doing that survey online, or we could actually send you the file. You could print off the file and then send in the survey back, or we can print it and send it to you. But what's included in that survey and that report are, again, folks that do pasture maintenance, might be doing aeration of pastures, pasture burning types of things, clearing cedar trees. And some of this is also on our regular survey, but again, we wanted to make sure we were getting this out wider to folks that, are involved in the livestock industry. Again, fencing, all kinds of fencing services. But then also, working with cattle, like yardage, if you are providing yardage services for calving heifers, calving cows, those kinds of things. Processing fees on cattle finishing and yardage rates there. We've got questions on those that are working with hogs, growing feeder pigs, and poultry and sheep as well. And then hauling operations, because we know there's a lot of folks that do hauling for all the livestock in Nebraska. And so what are those rates? Custom feed preparation, so again, grinding hay, grinding and mixing, pelleting feed only, that kind of thing. And then bulk feed delivery is on here, as well as haying. And we do have some of the haying operations on our regular survey, but again, we're getting down to, hopefully reaching those that may not always participate in that. Manure pumping, hauling, and application. We'd really like folks that are involved in that side of things to participate in the survey, so that folks have a better idea of what it might cost them to utilize those services, or again, what they might charge. So those are the kinds of things that are in that livestock survey.
Absolutely. And again, that web address is cap.unl.edu/custom rates. You can sign up to complete the livestock-related custom rates survey here in Nebraska if you provide those services or if you pay for those services. Again, the center would love to hear from you, and those are currently open, I think, Glennis, through the end of February here in 2025. Right. So getting back to the survey data and how that can be used, if in addition to reviewing past survey data, many operators still need to calculate their own costs when they're setting custom rates. So can you talk about how the agricultural budget calculator tool can help producers and custom service providers to better understand their costs?
Yes. So a lot of these things can be, figured out longhand, right? Or using a spreadsheet. But now we have the Ag Budget Calculator program, and I think it really does a great job. We've got some engineering formulas in that program to help figure out salvage value, repair cost, even some fuel efficiency types of things on cost of operating machinery and equipment over X number of acres and whatever the hours it might take to cover acres, that kind of thing. And so that is a great, tool. And I do have folks call and say, well, what should I charge? And I'm like, okay, so the custom rates report is one source that you can look at. And again, it might provide a guide for you, but you really need to know your cost. And so it's pretty simple, really, to look at that. What we ask for in that program, of course, you're going to sort of indicate what you anticipate your fuel costs to be. You've got a labor rate that you either want to be paid for a certain amount for your time, or you're paying somebody to do this. So what kind of labor rate? The fuel cost. Again, we look at repair costs. Opportunity costs. So what is that machinery costing you to own? Okay, either you're paying for it, either you're paying principal and interest for it, or there's a return on investment. So we figure an opportunity cost as well as depreciation. So there's, in the Ag Budget Calculator, if you put in, basically talk about a list price of a similar machine, like what did you pay for your equipment? How old was it when you bought it? And how long are you going to keep it? What is your ownership length of time? again, how many hours, if you're talking about a power unit, or, like how many hours of operation, like a tractor, how much does that get used over the year? So you spread those costs over those hours, or acres in the case of an implement. And then we ask about coverage rate. So like how quickly can you go through the field? How efficient do you go through the field? How many acres do you cover per hour? So again, that relates back to that power unit that's pulling that machine. And so again, those formulas are in the Ag Budget Calculator online. It's free to everyone to utilize. You just have to create an account with your email and create a password, and then you can look at this. But I think it's a great tool to really look at, again, what is our operational costs. And so, that combined, I think, with the custom rates report as a guide, and then plugging that information into a tool like the Ag Budget Calculator can really provide some good information, I think, for folks as they're considering, again, what's this costing me, to do these kinds of things for others.
And you can sign up for a free account to use the Ag Budget Calculator program if you visit agbudget.unl.edu. And Glennis, one more thing. Are there any trends that you see that could shape custom service rates in Nebraska here in the coming years? Any particular cost factors or industry shifts that producers and service providers should be keeping an eye on that will influence rates?
Well, yes, I think we're always going to have to consider like the fuel costs and our labor time and all of that. But when it comes to the equipment, and I think we're seeing more, we're seeing some different things happening with autonomous tractors again. So, maybe that's going to save on some labor cost, even like fuel efficiency at some point in time. So we're seeing some of that. Drones, as far as spraying goes, they can maybe cover more acres in shorter amount of time, some of that type of thing. And so, but I think it's important though. So technology, and I see that, and I see the precision ag equipment. But I think the question always is, though, too, what does that really cost you? What does it cost to spread that over the acres that you're covering? Okay, so we know that some of those precision spraying, implements are very, very high priced in cost. And so again, I think it's really important to do some figuring and understand really what those costs are on a per acre basis, so that if we were going to utilize that on our operation, that's one thing. But then again, what could we charge or should we charge, as we work with others? So again, the precision might be, again, it can be a cost savings, of course, in precisely applying like fertilizer, and that type of thing. So there might be cost savings on that end, but really what's that machinery cost and, really doing for you. So.
Well, thank you. That's Glennis McClure, Extension Educator, Farm and Ranch Management Analyst here with the Center for Agricultural Profitability at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. And she has a new article about using custom service rates in 2025 field operations as we enter a new growing season. Hopefully you find that particularly useful. And that's linked to in the podcast notes wherever you're listening to this, and of course available on our Center for Ag Profitability's website at cap.unl.edu, where you can also find the custom rates reports, custom rates survey to sign up for, links to the Ag Budget Calculator, and a host of other farm and ranch management resources. Glennis, thanks for taking the time again to chat.
Well, thanks again. I always enjoy visiting with you, Ryan.
Nebraska Farmcast is a production of the Center for Agricultural Profitability at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. For the latest research-based information and education resources to manage your farm or ranch operation, visit our website at cap.unl.edu. That's cap.unl.edu.